New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Hello, hi, it's me, yes, Bonnie Morgan Gonzalez, your doula for grief. And I am a grief coach, a registered nurse, and a religious science practitioner. Also, my absolute fave is I am a licensed soul collage facilitator. And a couple weeks ago, I did a show on the healing power of art and included soul collage. So maybe go back and check that out. But anyway, I just want to say thank you for joining me today. If you're returning, that is wonderful. Thanks for coming back. And if this is your first time, I welcome you. And just stay tuned and be a part of this program. Returning or new, be a part of this program. And just drop a comment or a question in the box below. So before we dash into our beautiful program today we're going to be exploring what is a death doula. What does a death doula do? It's a lot of D's there. But before we move into our death doula or joined by our death doula, just want to talk to you a little bit about grief. And I can just assure you that you have come to the right place today if you're on your grief journey. What I am about here is about befriending grief, moving the needle on dialogue around grief, making it okay to talk about grief. You know, grief is like the elephant in the room. We're afraid to even glance over at it because so many times when we think about grief, our first default is to death. And yes, that holds a special place in the whole human experience. Death is the ultimate causer of grief. But I want you to realize it's not just the death of a person. Grief is caused by loss. And loss is caused by a myriad of things. A divorce, of course, loss of a job, hopes and dreams. Even the death of your pet, moving to a different location, a loss of a lifestyle that was familiar and comfortable. All of these things, all of these losses push us into change. And it also is the cause of that grief. Change is difficult. The unknown is really difficult for us. Anytime we experience a loss, we find ourselves on shaky ground. Or I love the analogy that when we say loss, L-O-S-S, it is the equivalent of lost, L-O-S-T. When we lose a loved one, it's like, who am I? Who am I now if I'm not Leroy's daughter? Or who am I now that I've been uprooted from my motherland, living in another country? Who am I now? So that is loss leading to feeling loss. And those feelings that come up, that is grief. That is what grief is. Grief's superpower is healing. It's like having to just walk through that fire, paying attention, and coming out on the other side. And as you're going through that fire, that is when you need to be able to validate where you are. Grief needs to be validated. Grief needs to be heard. And when we're in grief, as social creatures, we need the company of others around us. Because as Bell Hooks says, we cannot heal in isolation. One by one, we confront our grief on a level that is personal and affects each one of us differently. Every person grieves differently. So just knowing that as well can alleviate so much anxiety and so much stress. I don't know about you, but I cannot tell you how many times I've sat with someone and allowed them to just pour their heart out about where they are in their grief, regardless of the cause of that grief. It is always after, at the end of the conversation, it is always, wow, I feel so much better. So if our just being able to listen, giving people permission to discuss their grief, that is a validation that the time is long overdue to bring grief out of the shadows and into the forefront of our lives. Because grief is assuredly a human experience. And just think about it. We're educated on so many things as we're coming of age. Educated on opening a bank account, learning how to drive a car, learning the do's and don'ts of socializing. Why isn't it that we are learned or taught about grief and how to grieve? So, with that said, just want to assure you that you are in the right place. If you're grieving or in grief today, you're in the right place. So, thank you again for joining. And each week I have a different topic of discussion. Last week we had the beautiful Laura Topper on, who discussed how Judaism honors grief. And you may want to go back and watch that episode. I received so many comments from that program. And my thought when Laura and I were dialoguing, I thought, wow, this is really heavy stuff. And I know how our society does not lean into discomfort, how that could be very uncomfortable for someone. But the responses that I got back, and I was surprised. So many people said they found it to be so uplifting. And again, that was a confirmation for me to continue our dialogue around grief. So thank you again to Laura. And today, I'm just super excited that we are going to be talking with a real live death doula. And what is a death doula? And it's like, what does a death doula do? From the International End-of-Life Doula Association, says death doulas help restore sacredness to dying provide a reprieve to exhausted caregivers, and bring deep meaning to the dying experience. So I am just so overjoyed, over the top, over the moon to be introducing my beautiful guest, and her name is Deb Love. And a little bit about Deb before she comes on to join us. Deb Love is an advocate for death positivity and erasing taboos around death and dying. She is an end of life doula, a death cafe facilitator and celebrant. Deb found her soul work after years of navigating her own losses and grief. Her experience fueled her desire to empower dying people and their families, and to create a good death. So with that, let's just welcome Deb to the program today. And I'll make a little disclaimer before Deb comes on. Deb and I decided to make this very interesting today. We're having a little audio, so I'm going to mute. So sometimes I may forget to unmute, but I will unmute. Deb, thank you so much for being here. You know how excited I am that we finally made this happen.
Same. It's been months. I've been looking forward to hanging out and having the conversation with you. I know we've tried so many times, and finally we've made it, and successful we are.
Well, that's because we are persistent women. We do not give up. We are persistent human beings. How's that?
Okay. I love it.
Oh, Deb, oh, wow. I read a little bit about what the National Association of Death Doula says, what it is that a death doula does. But can you just speak to your heart around being a doula? Just a little bit maybe about you, and then a big bit about being a death doula.
Absolutely. So I became a death doula actually after my mother passed away, and I found out there was a real true need. People often think I'm kind of a little crazy when I say I'm grateful that my mother passed, because it catapulted me into soul work. If I didn't realize the need that we have for doulas within the medical field, I don't think I ever would have gone on this amazing and incredible journey. The best way to sum up what a death doula is we're a non-medical, holistic approach to the dying and their family. So we help with initial diagnosis, such as something terminal, such as cancer, and we walk them through the process all the way after the celebration of life or funeral, and help within grief and bereavement with the family. So essentially, we hold their hand through the entire process.
Great, Deb. Now, I was going to ask, I know you were saying that your mother, it all started when your mother died. And what's your mother's name?
My mom's name is Patty.
Patty. Well, we thank Patty for giving birth to Deb, and for allowing you to explore death in a different way. And did your mother have a death doula?
No, my mother suffered. My mom went through needless procedures. My mom's battle was a battle that she really didn't have a chance. Things were just not explained in the way they needed to be explained. You know, we forget as humans that death is an option, and it's a good option, and we should be allowed to choose that option. I don't think that option was ever given to us. I mean, primarily the medical field is focused on curative care as opposed to palliative care, taking care, giving quality of life versus quantity of life. And that's what a doula offers, is allowing quality versus quantity.
And Deb, now that you are seeing the effect of what a doula does, is there any, maybe just speak to this point, maybe why would a person want a death doula? How do you present that to people?
Absolutely.
Because as you know, our culture, one of the big problems is that we can't even speak of death.
Mm-mm.
So, so speak to that. Speak to that, how you introduce that subject to someone.
Well, it depends. First of all, like I said, if the person is getting ready to pass on, and honestly, there's even clients that have no medical issues and they just want to be prepared. I think a doula is essential because number one, it's a scary thing to face looking death in the eye. And, sometimes we don't want to talk to our immediate family members because we know it's going to upset them. And we need someone that's going to understand and help them understand when their body starts changing and, when they start rejecting food and things start occurring. And we're able to walk them through the process and say, these are the things that we can accept. These are the things that we can learn about. These are the things that we can grow. A doula offers support all around: emotional support, spiritual support. We offer referrals. So if it's something that we can't do, like let's say you want to die and you want to die around a healing sound bath with a waterfall flowing in the background, hospice is not going to be able to give you that, but a doula can. A doula brings back the power, going back to the family, empowering us to take charge and have a good death. It's almost like death is such a taboo, right? It really is. We, even at hospitals, they're locked, they're in these bags, being pushed behind closed doors in elevators. It's very hush hush. And before, we forget that for thousands of years, we were caring for our dead. Our families were coming together and we were washing their body and clothing them and having time for us to actually go through the grieving process, where sometimes they would stay anywhere between 1 to 7 days with their loved one to allow that process to begin. And now we don't have that anymore. It's your loved one's died. She was at the ICU. You come there, you give your 10, 15, 20 minutes with your loved one, and then they're taken in a body bag and given to the morgue. We have taken away the humanizing of death and dying.
Oh, wow, Deb. I would, I spent 25 years of working in ICU, and I would have so loved to have seen a death doula step on the scene, because it's, to me, it's like you're offering support to the patient or client. What do you prefer? Patient?
I prefer patient.
Patient.
Yeah,
Yeah.
patient.
You're offering support to the patient, but so many times it's the family, it's the loved ones that really need that support. And being a nurse in ICU, yes, I'm taking care of your loved one, but I'm not out in the waiting room holding your hand or letting you know what's going on. So I was going to ask you to speak a little bit more to what services you provide to the family, how that can be a comfort to get a death doula on board.
Absolutely. That's a great question. So one of the first things I want to mention is what you were just saying about how the family's in the waiting room. I don't know how many times this happens. I mean, I was experienced this myself. A doctor comes in, starts talking doctor lingo, and you're sitting there going, what are we doing? What procedure is this? What is happening? And you're completely confused. And it's not really, they can't take the time in the medical field to be able to sit there and explain it to you. A doula goes with you to these appointments, to your doctors. A doula is working with your oncologist directly, joining part of that team. So we're not taking over hospice. We're not taking over palliative or respite care. We are just an added addition to help process through this transition. So that way, when we go to these doctor's appointments and things like that, we're taking the notations of everything the doctor's saying. So when we go back home with the patient, I can sit down with them and say, okay, this is what's going on. Let me give you detailed information surrounding what this procedure is, and also give realistic expectations. Is this going to prolong their life? Now, if it prolongs your life, is there going to be suffering that's involved? Because again, it goes back to what I said. They're very focused on curative care. And if it prolongs your life for 2 months and you're in complete agony for the next 2 months, well, there's really not a win in that, right? It's just prolonging your suffering and prolonging the inevitable. So making sure that patients have the right information is something we do. We also help with green funerals, green burials, home funerals, which is, people don't know that you can do this. It's a real thing. You can have grandma in her bed where all the family comes over and talks to her and plan these beautiful celebrations that you don't have to pay thousands and thousands of dollars to funeral homes. Funeral home people aren't really fond of us doulas, because let's be honest, we're taking away thousands of dollars when we explain, hey, you don't have to spend $8,000 to $15,000 on a casket. You can get something that's biodegradable, doesn't harm the earth, and be in a forest of trees at a green commissary or any of these type of beautiful green burials that exist all throughout the United States. So it's really about giving education to the families, teaching the families about other things that are out there, like composting, and that we can now become compost. Like, why be a tree when you can be a whole forest? Like, you know? So there's all these options that we can choose from. So a doula explains that to the families and to the dying, to say, hey, you don't have to do this traditional stuff. You can be your creative awesomeness, and let me show you how.
Yes. Oh my God, Deb, you bring up so many points. Okay, first point, I had to make a little note because I so love all of the options versus the funeral, and the even cremation I hear is hard on the environment. But I want to back all the way up to your being that support for the family, for the patient and the family, because I know myself, I'll keep it in the eye, that when I hear death doula, I think of my dying and somebody there with me. Not that that person is there for my entire family. So I think this is helping me to process that part as well. So with that said, Deb, who in the hospital setting, or is it hospice that you work hand in hand with? Do you go to hospitals to say this is my service, or do you work with hospice? Or exactly how does one find out where this beautiful death doula is?
So all of that. we go to hospitals, we go to nursing homes, we go to in-home, all over the place. The best way to find a doula is, of course, by going to NEDA's website, which is the National Doula Association, which any doula that is on that registry has been certified under NEDA's guidelines. So that basically means that you can trust them in their judgment, and they know what they're doing, and they've had the proper training. Or, of course, hospice also works in conjunctions with end-of-life doulas, asking your hospice caseworker if they have any referrals for an end-of-life doula. 9 out of 10 times they will, because we do work in conjunction with hospice. We fill in the gap.
And I hope this is not too inappropriate. Is there a fee or cost for service? And is that picked up by the insurance, by the hospice program? Hospice is not a service that you pay for. It's provided by the government. It's a big structured program. So talk a little bit about that if you can.
Sure. Well, one of the doula scopes of practice that we abide to when we become an end-of-life doula is always making sure that we're affordable. There are doulas that do volunteer work. There are doulas that get paid. So it really depends on what you're doing at the time. Now, if you're wanting something like the whole shebang from the time of diagnosis all the way to helping your family with grief and bereavement, there would be different packages and things like that would fit your family. But one of the things, like I said, that we strictly adhere to is making sure that it is affordable to working families. We're not causing an arm and a leg and anything like that. And there is volunteer doulas out there. Like, I'm a volunteer doula for my Center for Spiritual Living. So if anybody in our center gets a diagnosis or is getting ready to pass, I automatically would come forward and help the person that is dying in their family free of cost with absolutely nothing. So it really depends on the person themselves. But most doulas also do volunteer work as well as get paid.
Wow. That is just Oh, you've been elevated now up to sainthood. You're already you're already doing great work now up to sainthood. To just say that that you want to make this available to all and not allowing the money to be an issue. I really feel that that's
It's so worth. When I tell people, when people tell me like, how did you do all that for free? Why would you do all that? And the way that I look at it is, it's my soul work that I put out, I receive. So I'm not worried about the money. That's not why I do that. I do this for healing. I do this for the joy of the family, to be able to, see their celebration, to be able to honor their loved one, to be able to hold this person's hand. You know how much of an honor that is, to be able to have a person say, I choose you. I choose you to walk me home. I choose you to hold my hand through this process. There is nothing that is more rewarding and more fulfilling to me than that. No, it's priceless. No amount of money could ever mean as much to me as being in those moments.
That is beautiful. You're speaking to my soul. You're speaking to my soul. I know exactly what you're talking about. To be with someone as they take their last breath, you feel the sacredness of it in that moment, that you trusted me to be here for you after your physical passing. We'll say transition, because for me life is eternal, but after your physical passing on this plane. I was just going to ask, after say your client has transitioned, you said that you also stay to help with post-mortem care. Is that true, or does...
Yes, and this is I think the biggest honor for me. And the reason I say this is because when you're washing the hands of this person, these hands are directly influence others' lives. These hands worked hard preparing meals with love. The feet that you're washing has walked miles, all showing up as spirit. Like there is something that very ritual and very spiritual when we care for the body and honor the life they lived. So yes, we help with after death care as well, clothing and bathing. A lot of times what I do is I'll talk to the family themselves and walk them through it to allow them, because again, we're taking away that humanization of death and dying.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Deb, when you said that, it just brings me back to the day that my own mother transitioned. And I was sick and at home, and my sister called to say that the word we used was gone. She's gone. And I got out of the bed. It's like, I can't just stay and have them, come and take her away and be in a mortuary somewhere. So I got in my car and I drove. But I was driving so slow. But I felt like I needed to be there. And I remember driving so slow, and there was like this motorcycle behind me. And I thought, well, let me pull over a little bit so that person can pass. And I thought to myself, he doesn't realize that I'm driving slow because my mother just died. But in that moment, Deb, he waved his hand, and I thought, oh, I'm being supported as I'm on this sacred mission. And when I got there, I was able to do exactly what you're talking about. Bathe my mother. And with each stroke, each caress, it was like, thank you for birthing me. Thank you for feeding me when I couldn't do things for myself. Each rub, each stroke, every spot that I cleansed, it was in gratitude. And that, for me, was something I call beginning the grieving process. Beginning the grieving process right there, right then and there. And it was just the most rewarding, the most satisfying thing that I could have done in the face of such a horrific experience in that moment, the loss of your mother. For me, there could not have been anything bigger or have anything bigger in my life. And so just to be a part of that and to know that you are there allowing people to have that experience, encouraging them to have that experience. I'm going to mute. I know that it's hard. Is it still an echo if I'm talking? And okay, so I'm going to mute, let you speak to the sacredness of postmortem care, to just allow our viewers to hear that part. Okay.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So ideally what I prefer to do is instruct the family to speak to their loved one. I ask them to talk to them, tell them thank you, tell them they appreciate them, and wash. And as they grieve, because obviously they're grieving, you know, it's while they're washing, they're crying, they're weeping over their loved one's body. But for them, again, it's spiritual is the best way I can say. When I keep talking about ritual experience, it is a ritual because you're washing the head, the hair, down the body. You are caring for who has cared for you all of these years and saying, I see you, I honor you, you mattered. And just repeating that, I see you, I honor you, you mattered. And being able to release that allows a person to be able to grieve, because a lot of times, if you've noticed, if people pass away and they don't have a celebration or a funeral, they kind of carry that burden of grief with them, as opposed to releasing and allowing it to flow. And that's because they haven't had that reality of, this person has passed on. I have to start this process of grief now. And having this experience laying next to your loved one, the way that you adorned your mother, I'm sure that is the most important aspect that stays with you to this day, was not even the death, what was the caring of your mother afterwards. It's something that just
You are so correct in that. I will carry that to my own grave as well, to be able to have the honor of caring for her at that most sacred, precious time. So, wow. I'm just going to breathe into that myself. And or I think, Deb, for me to be able to share this, because you never know whose life is going to be impacted by that. You know, there will be someone else who will hear this and remember that at their moment of grieving a loved one and say, wow, well, let me do that. So that is just beautiful. We're just going to take a little break and come back, because I have tons of questions. My background is a little quieter now, so I'll be able to ask some more questions. And just thanking our beautiful guest, Debs Love Death Doula, who's with us today. So just a little break and we'll be right back.
New Thought has a money problem. You know, it's okay to talk about prosperity. It's okay to talk about abundance. It's okay to talk about overflow, but often talking about money feels taboo, or it feels verboten, like, do not talk about that. And I've experienced this in our New Thought communities and our centers and with our New Thought friends. And so here's my thinking: who better to have money and to have mastered a money mindset than those of us who are working to build a more equitable world using New Thought spirituality, New Thought technology, and all of the wonderful things that we know work. I am Reverend Cheryl McCreary, and I invite you to join me for a 5-week online workshop entitled Manifest More Money. This work is intended to use spiritual practices and practical actions to help you bust through your money set point, to help you release any kind of money shame or guilt or limits or limited thinking and boxes you put yourself in, and to really move into right relationship, divine right relationship with money. Indeed, our divine birthright is to have unlimited abundance, and that includes money. So I invite you to join me. We're going to kick everything off on Thursday, September 1st. All of the information is right here in the post below. The link for you to register is right here for you. And here's the really great thing. If you register using the link here at New Thought Media Network, they will receive 50% of your registration fee. It goes directly to New Thought Media Network. So I invite you to join me. Let's take this walk together. Let's blow the hinges off of our money consciousness and our money limits. And let's really get aligned with that divine source of energy that we use on this plane to exchange goods and services and to create a better world. I invite you to join me. I look forward to it.
Hi, thank you, Reverend McQuarrie, for that promotional ad to help New Thought Media, to help bring more valuable, more in-depth, spiritually focused and guided program. So please, if that speaks to your heart, yes, please help New Thought Media Network. I want to acknowledge some viewers that are out there. Pam Brown, hello, and Natasha Taylor, and a Facebook user. As we continue delving into what a death doula does. And we're going to bring our guest back in, Debs Love back in, to continue this wonderful, wonderful dialogue around death doulas. I wanted to ask you, Deb, has there been any requests that were, for you personally, like, this is just, I can't phantom myself doing this, or any of those things?
Nope. I am very open. If you want your loved ones standing up at a party and they are passed on, and whatever it is that you want, I am on board with. I will never tell a family something is too wild. There was actually, it's funny that you had mentioned this. There was a rapper recently that had passed away. I don't know if you had heard about it or not, but this gentleman was always on stage, and there was this big taboo over it because he was standing up, and the family decided to do his celebration of life at a club that he performed at all the time. And they had his body standing up there, and he's wearing his like jeans. And the mom said, when they were giving her, you know, a hassle and all this, and said, I'm not going to have anyone look down on my son. And this was my son's life. This was where he was on stage. And I seen all these like horrible comments, and I'm like, this is how embalmers showed off their work back in the day. You know, they would have them posted up for weeks, and they're like, look at this. This guy's been dead for 3 months. No smell. He looks amazing. Choose me to do your work. So it's funny how we as a society have turned death into this taboo, and it's just the flip side, the flip coin side of life. You know, it's all part of it. So I just wanted to share that. So no, the answer is no, no, no. I don't care how wild, how crazy it is. If it is your dream, I'm going to do my best to make it happen.
I love hearing that. I love hearing that. I'm not sure about the laws in Florida, but does Florida have medically assisted suicide?
I do not believe we do at this time. I know that we are working towards it. I am a fan of it. I believe 100% that if somebody is suffering to the point where they can't get out of bed, and they're frail, and they're breaking bones in the process, and they are, you know, obviously in a losing battle, and they are suffering, I 100% support it. I mean, we do that with our animals that we love, to not allow them to suffer. So I support it 100% for assisted suicide. I don't like the term assisted suicide. I feel like it has a taboo attached because the word suicide in there. So I would like to change the verbiage or the language surrounding it, but I know that we are currently working with it right now.
And what would you like that verbiage to be? What would you, yeah, I know, what feels good? I'm thinking right along with you as I mute myself. I'm thinking right along with.
Maybe release of suffering, you know? going home. I don't know, something that isn't so taboo with the name suicide on it, because it's not the case. It's not that they've given up on life. They don't want to suffer anymore. And we need to acknowledge that and say, I see you. And again, you matter. And again, you're honored. So sticking to those way of thinking in the scope of doula work, absolutely, you have the right to die. Absolutely. So
Yeah,
I'll think on that one.
Yeah, I was thinking something along using the term like journey, assisting the journey, or choosing. Yes, choosing to journey, choosing that you're choosing to start your journey, choosing to journey. Yeah. So we could we can brainstorm that, and I'll let California know they need to start to
well, California does have a system. It's Florida.
Yeah, I know. I'm from California. And the reason I could ask that question is because when I first heard that it was going to be law, I just thought, wow, I could really be there for someone in that moment of transition, or walking them home. We'll put it that way, walking them home. But then, Deb, I thought, could I really administer a lethal injection of anything? I mean, that's my own personal. That was me. That was like, wow, could I really do this? Could I really do this? But now what I hear from California, because I'm in Mexico now, is that if you're a licensed professional, you are not by law allowed to administer that dose. It has to be either the patient has to be able or someone appointed in the family to assist. And if anybody out there knows that they're of anything that's different from what I just said, please let me know. I do not want to give misinformation to anyone. But when I was in California, that's the way it was. So that's what prompted me to ask the question, is there anything that you feel you would not be able to do? But it sounds like you're pretty...
As a doula, you're not allowed. I will say that as a doula, when it does say we are a non-medical, holistic, what that means is we are not even allowed to give an ibuprofen. I can't even change a Band-Aid. I can help with like palliative care, like helping with bathing, light household work, walking the family dog, relieving caregiver burnout, things of that nature. But as far as any administration of medication in any way, shape, or form, we are legally by law not allowed at all. So we would have to wait for a nurse or somebody that would come in to the home where they're in hospice and administer medication. And that also includes pain medicine as well.
Wow. Thank you for that. And I was going to say, I know that you said you have been a death doula, but now you're in the process of getting a certification.
Right.
What's that training like? What are they training you to do?
Learn. It's about learning. We learn everything from palliative care, the laws and legalities surrounding like home funerals, like if you can take the body here or there, if you can transport this or that. There's several different programs. The way that doula works is technically anybody can go out and become a doula. However, I highly, highly, highly suggest finding a program, a training program. There's so many out there to choose from. I personally trained with lifespan doulas, but there again is several different programs to choose from. Some that are 100% self-paced that you can just take your time. Others that are like 10-week class. Ideally, they just do the certification is really just so the family knows that you know what you're talking about. Because if you haven't taken any courses and you're out here saying you're a doula, people aren't going to be as confident as to work with you without those certifications. So what I'm working towards is being NEDA certified. So that way, if anybody, like I said earlier in the program, about if you're looking for a doula, I would love to be on their registry. So that's what I'm working towards now. So I'm studying all their course material for what it takes to be certified through that particular organization. So I've been doing doula work officially for about, I want to say 6 months. So it's very, very fresh. It's still in the infancy. Brand new.
Great.
And I started training when we first started talking. I remember when I was like, I don't know if I could go on yet. I'm not sure. I'm like trying to work through this. And that was in February when I had started the training. And then boom, it was like Spirit had just said, you thought you weren't ready. And then it was like, and I'm like, all these different people are calling me. Suddenly I'm in these workshops. I'm speaking here. I'm doing this gig over here. And I'm like, what is happening? And then that aha moment came where Spirit came through me and said, this is your soul's work. This is why everything is aligning perfectly for you, where there's no hiccups. And I'm like, I'm not used to this. I'm not used to everything just falling into place like
this. Oh, Deb, well, what were you doing prior to being a death doula?
Marketing, business communications and marketing.
Well, what were you marketing?
Well, different businesses. I worked with other businesses, mainly people that were also in the New Thought community. I helped promote their businesses, create video content, and I like doing it, but it didn't create the passion and this passion that doula work offers me. I thought I was passionate about marketing, but yeah, no, nothing compared to my doula work.
I think that it would help. I mean, it helps you promote the doula work.
Yes, I'm grateful for the experience. So now I can promote. Yes.
Yeah, because I always say that we're never far from our true north. We're never far from our true north. When we find our passion, you were doing something that was aligning, getting you ready for this big leap.
Yeah.
I think we have a comment here. Let me just. Is it Duria? Durham? I've been considering being a death doula. Well, Duria, don't consider it. Do it.
Just
do it. As Nike says, just do it.
Start at hospice. What I tell people, make sure you're able to deal with this, because even though it sounds like a great concept and you're like, wow, I've always dreamed of this. This sounds so cool. Volunteer at a local hospice. Find out if you can go there. Find out if you can, because this is very energetic. I mean, you will go into a frequency, into holding space, and you are surrounded by grief, and you need to be able to walk someone home, deal with all the family grief, and then come home with your own family and sit down and eat dinner and be able to separate the two. So what I suggest to people, if this is a path that you're looking to get into, start out volunteering first with hospice. See if that passion grows. And if you realize you do, then start looking for programs that certify into doulaship and let your journey begin. But start with volunteering first.
Great. And I was going to say, Natasha Taylor says, also taking care of the kids. That's a big one. That's a big one. So thank you, Natasha, for that reminder. Man, those doulas, it's like one-stop shop is what I want to say. And I want to get back to, we're running out of time. I can't believe it. I want to get back to, you were saying for people to start with hospice and see if you really like that work and see if it resonates to you. So what I want to ask you with that note, seeing if it resonates to you and you love it, how do you take care of Deb at the end of the day, at the end of the week? If this is really, you're giving of yourself, your energy, you're giving. How do you take care of Deb?
That is an excellent question. I'm really glad that you brought it up, because caretakers, we have to take time for self-care. The way that I do it, honestly, I do a lot of grounding, a lot of meditating, and a lot of staying in gratitude. So when I walk in that door, before I walk in, I ground myself before walking the door, meaning I will sit in my car for about 10 minutes before I walk inside after dealing with everything. And I take breaths and I speak to the person who passed away, and I tell them, thank you so much for this experience. I'm so honored. You are so blessed. You're surrounded by your loved ones. And I talk to them and I release, knowing that they are already in their greatest and highest good, knowing that they are back to spirit and divine again. So when I walk in here, I'm able to separate that, because I don't bring that to my family. Imagine if you just took everybody's grief and then brought it home to family dinner. You probably wouldn't get a lot done, and I would just be moping around. So my self-care consists of meditation. It's phoning a friend. It's going to my counsel. It's saying, hey, this time was a hard one for me. What do you think we should do today? And they'll say, okay, well, did you take time for meditation? Did you take you time? Did you take a bubble bath? Did Did you have a glass of wine? What are the things that Deb does? And those are things Deb does. I will literally take my shoes off and I do groundwork outside in my backyard. I meditate calmly. And mainly the biggest thing, like I said, is releasing that. You have to release in order to bring in the new. So that's my self-care, is grounding, meditation, and phone a friend.
Oh, wow, Deb. And just to have you at the bedside is, that's a comfort right there itself. That is a comfort, because when people are in transitioning, especially people dying from cancer, there is a lot of pain. There's a lot of anxiety that's associated with that type of death, anticipatory grief, anticipating their own death and what's going to happen with their families. So to have you there, it is priceless. And that's why I want to say to Duya, go ahead and do that. She says thanks for the advice, but go ahead and do that. Know that these types of services are invaluable. And I'm just going to say this for myself. Answering that call is the most satisfying thing that you could ever do, with your life. And so with that, Deb, I want to ask you, how would you like to die? What does your deathbed
Oh, thank you for asking. So I want to be at home. I do not want to be hooked up to machines. I don't want things on my throat and wires in my chest. I don't want to be in the hospital. I want to be home with my family, surrounded by my loved ones, my favorite music playing in the background. I would love aromatherapy, especially, those sensory. Just because a person isn't as coherent does not mean they don't hear and smell and sense what's going on. I want aromatherapy, so I'm smelling lavender, breathing it in. I told my friend who does like sound bowl healings, I was like, listen, if I'm going out, you're bringing the whole set. I want the whole sound going off with the sound bowls, singing bowls. I'm like, I want my Reiki master at the foot of my bed, my wife holding my hands. And depending on my children's age is really what I discuss with my partners. That if my kids are really, really little, then obviously I would prefer that they see me more in a happier state. If they're a little bit older, mid-age, then I'm totally okay with them being right in the room, laying down with me. I don't think we should shun kids from death in any way, shape, or form. Especially the celebration I just put on was really awesome. Can I share that real quick? Yeah, okay. I know it's off topic and not about I can't hear you. You're muted, Bonnie. No idea what you're saying.
Oh, no, I said, please. And I know that would have an echo, so I'm muted. But I was just going to say, I think we need to bring the joy into that this can be joyous. It doesn't have to be all gloom and doom, and it can be joyous. Put it that we're celebrating that we had the beauty of being with this person. So yes, I'm going to
I have this awesome story to tell. I'm not going to obviously use names, but I just recently did a celebration of life. So for someone that passed from cancer, she was only 41 years old, and she was a feisty, sarcastic spitfire, was just always brought joy, love, was, very giving. And the family just painted this amazing picture of who this woman was. Well, what she said that she wanted, she's like, listen, I want everyone like wearing inflatables and I want people dancing. Well, sure enough, we had 8 of the family members dressed up as multiple different colored unicorns. And they came out and they were playing New Kids on the Block, The Right Stuff. And the kids were just coming out pumping with all the stuff. And we had mom, who's in her 60s, dancing to the Tootsie Roll with this unicorn outfit on. And I swear to you guys, even though in that moment, I'm sitting here just crying, right? And people are just looking at me. But I'm crying because I'm just like, what joy, what amazingness that grief can bring out this joy and happiness. And that's what a celebration of life is. That's how it differs from a funeral. The funeral is very solemn and woe is me. Like, why aren't we celebrating? They're back to spirit. They're back to perfection. Let's celebrate what they left behind, the treasures they left behind, love, kindness, that now they still continue to shine through the world, because they gave it to us. And those are the things that we're putting out. So it was just, I just wanted to share that because it was so cool. Just, I wish you guys could have seen it. I think you might have seen it on my story.
Oh my gosh. Debs, I was just going to say, when I was in prac training, we had to, write out, of course, our own funeral and what would be a part of that funeral. But for me, I just want to die outdoors, like laying on this big, like cushiony bed with all my kids around me, my 2 granddaughters, and being just being free and letting them know that I am, like my mom said, I'm happy to go. I'm happy. It's time for that next journey. That death is the birth into my next existence. So, and I think it was Harry Potter that even said, one of the characters in Harry Potter, maybe it was Dumbledore, said, to the organized mind, death is just the next great adventure. So I feel that if we could start to hold death in a different light, that this fear around talking about it, this fear about not wanting to share your grief, this fear about, I don't want to think about my, parent or anyway, your loved one dying. But if we could hold it in a different way, it would not cause so much anxiety. So
it's a beautiful way to do it.
Yeah. So much. But what I was going to say also is that the more we can talk about it, the more we can move through our own fear or anxiety around death.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing with me. First of all, I love the way that you want to die. That is so unique and so awesome. You're like, I'm just going to be outside in the wilderness on this plethora of pillows, beds, surrounded by nature. What that's awesome.
And I try to keep it into what I want. As I say, the universe doesn't understand, don't. Because I was thinking, I don't want to be in that. I don't want to be. It's like, I want to be outside, the air, a warm breeze blowing, caressing my skin, and just, hand being held by a great death doula. Or my family acting as the death doula. Is there, Deb, is there any other advice that you'd like to give us regarding
fill out your advance directive? No matter how. Fill out your advance directive. No matter how old you are, fill it out, because we never know that exit point that we decided before we got here to this planet. So we need to make sure that our family and our loved ones, when we pass, aren't burdened with decisions to make, like, do I want to be on an event? Do I want to be able to have a feeding tube? Are these things that I want to happen to me? So making sure that your advance directive is taken care of, and also making sure that you appoint a person, because the way that it works is that it will go to the family's next of kin. And let's say you haven't talked to your parents in 15, 20 years. They've, I don't know, they've got their own life and they've excommunicated you. In the event that you were to pass on, the choices of what happens to your body goes to them. So if you don't want that to happen, fill out your paperwork is my advice. And talk about death more. Find a death cafe near you.
And there's a comment from Natasha Taylor. Thank you, Deb. That is, get your affairs in order. Get your affairs in order. I had a coach that said, when we die, we're going to leave a mess, and somebody's going to have to clean it up. So if you can get your mess organized, it's less the family has to do going through already a sad situation. Natasha says, that's true. It's a work in progress for me to talk about death. Anxiety is still there, but I'm working through it. I just want to offer another, just a little bit of advice, Natasha. It was after I could accept death, my own death, that I found that I could be more 100% of a nurse. And there's a Buddhist quote, you can't enjoy living until you accept dying. You can't enjoy living until you accept dying. And just knowing that we have beautiful doulas out here to support that process. I am in gratitude, Deb, Deb's email is divineexit@gmail.com. Divine Exit. You are truly divine. You truly are, Deb.
And if you're too far away, I can meet for you. If someone reaches out, I can always refer them to a local death doula if I'm not in their area to help and assist, and always help with referrals or any questions that some may have.
Wonderful. So I see we're getting some thank yous, and thank you for our guests and our viewers. Thank you for our viewers, and mostly important is thank you, Deb. We will have to have you back for more dialogue. This is just a rich subject that you can't just 40 minutes and here we are, we're done. But anyway, thank you so much. And I just want each person out there, just ask yourself, what do you need today? What do you need today? And do that. And do that for yourself. As Deb was saying, a bubble bath, a glass of wine. Not a bottle, but anyway, I'm glad we can end with laughter. That's always wonderful. But take the very best care of yourself and start giving some thought, as Deb said, about being organized around death. So thank you, and I will see you next week. Thank you, thank you.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network, come be you. And please, like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace and blessings.